Hey folks, welcome to another Q&A video here at Kerberos Productions for the Ground Pounder campaign. It's a regular day here at the doghouse. Pardon the garb, but we're just going to answer a few questions and get back to work. Our first question here in the mailbag is from Christopher. Christopher seems to be playing the breach scenario in the demo and is concerned about the lack of fortification skills of Soul Force on the Tark border. Christopher, don't be too worried. Once fortifications are in on the game, the border will be slightly better defended. In many of the ground pounder scenarios, political considerations are an issue. In this case, the other Tarka provinces on that planet are not too thrilled with the human compound being turned into a fortress. Defenses are going to have to be light just to keep the peace. In this case, we see the downside to that. But never fear. Soon you'll be able to build your own fortifications if you have enough time before you get overrun. Matthew Jones writes that he's really enjoying the heck out of the demo, and as a little piece of news for you, we're going to try and get you an updated alpha during the second half of the campaign. It'll have things like aircraft, fortifications, and bridges. Brian, your questions about multiplayer are good ones. So good, in fact, that we're going to bring D-Dub in tomorrow to answer all your multiplayer questions in a detailed presentation. Young Hawawa, from Hawawaville, which is right next to Whoville, I believe, asks about the progression of units and technology in ground pounders. Well, actually, ground pounders, despite being a science fiction game, is still a military game first and foremost. It represents the primal conflict between attack and defense. Currently in the modern era, we live in an era where weapons conquer all defenses. In the Sotsverse, in the period of time that we're looking at, defenses, armors, point defense, force fields, and such begin to give defense an edge over weaponry, which will cause weapon designers to look for larger bore weapons, higher energy power sources, and the progression goes on from there. This will be reflected in things like the return of the tank destroyer model, as naval guns are brought down to be used on chassis, but are much too large initially to be on a mobile turret. Mobility is another issue that drives tech levels. While units from the various races start in very traditional tracked, wheel, hover aspects, the needs of battle soon place things in a context where gravity control becomes an issue and also becomes available. In that case, you begin to see units resembling hover units, but having much heavier loadouts, as represented by the power plant able to lift the grav units. As that goes into extremely high-tech levels, you begin to see tanks blurring the lines between vehicles, gunship, and aircraft, as you get heavy bore weapon platforms capable of moving at hundreds of kilometers an hour, hundreds of feet above the ground. And finally, Vinco asks if there's going to be synergies between support units, and the answer is definitely yes. It's hard to plot out the rules for that in abstract, so I'll just give you a couple of hard examples. Imagine the fact that you're trying to push through a human defense located in a mountain range. As a Hyver player, your option is to use your tunnel units to carve a layer of roads below the standard map. In this case, you would have created a high-speed route below the level of vision of the enemy player that can emerge behind his lines. You can combine that with a logistics unit, and you can basically set up a supply base behind the enemy lines before he can react. The human version of this would be to take the high road. In that case, drop infantry would arrive from orbit, seize an airfield in the backfield. You would then use a transport aircraft unit to move in tanks or even artillery in your first turn of arrival. And then after that, use supply aircraft to keep everything going until you can punch a hole and relieve the defenders and seize the entire area. Well, that's about it for now. Until next time, thanks for all the support and keep on fighting.